Welcome back to another weekly GMBN Tech Show.
On the show this week, we have some ultra lightweight tech from Canyon.
Chainstay protection from STFU bike and also from Airdrop.
And not just that, but also the world's most expensive rear mech.
Unusually named frame packs from Ibis.
First up in the news this week is actually some new tech from Canyon, and it is an ultralight cross-country frame in the form of the new XSeed. So this basically uses a combination of Tokay M40X fibre in combination with Tokay's nano alloy resin and some pre-preg sheets to make something that is very, very strong. And when you make something stronger, that means you can then in turn run it thinner, which can, as a consequence, make it lighter. So perfect for this application of making very, very light XE hardtails. A raw, unfinished frame without all the gubbins that you need, such as, a derailleur hanger, chainstay protection, etc., comes in at just 740 grams for a medium. And interestingly enough, Canyon go out to detail every single component that makes up one frame in the grams, including the chain suck plate, which, weighs just 6 grams, as well as the integrated seat clamp at just 6 grams. The rear derailleur hanger comes in a whopping 27 grams. I haven't really seen a frame have its details laid out like that before, so I think that's pretty cool. So the frame uses a new and far cleaner entry port for any cables at the head tube. Now, we've seen other companies do something similar, especially on the road and gravel side, but it's becoming increasingly common in mountain bikes. So the cables actually go in just in front of the head tube. Now, what this means is they don't have to have any voids or any blank spaces on the side of the head tube, which in turn means that it's stronger, which yet again, as a consequence, means it can be lighter. And I think it looks really, really clean. I love integrated cables. I know a lot of people don't, but for me, I think they're great. And one of the things I really like, when you get road bikes that are fully integrated, it means all your cables are cut to perfect length anyway. Where for me, a lot of the time, as soon as I get a new bike, I have to take everything apart to get everything, all the cables and hoses trimmed just so. So I think it looks really, really cool. It also has this, the new impact protection unit, which normally be something you actually see externally on Canyon's frames, and is quite similar to what other brands are doing to stop the handlebars going a full way around, and it means your brake levers can't clatter your top tube and potentially damage it. So this one actually sits internally and is a lot cleaner looking, so either way it uses a proprietary headset, be it for the impact protection unit or indeed the cables, so it manages to do 2 birds with 1 stone. Canyon being Canyon, this bike is of course available in different specs of carbon fibre, as well as a whole multitude of different component specs. So the base model starts around £1,600 and it just goes up and up and up depending what carbon you want and what componentry you want on it.
Okay, next up in news is something from Airdrop Bikes. So the British company Airdrop Bikes are actually making their own chainstay protection. This is it on screen. It's called the VHS slapper tape. Now, you might have heard that term before. Slapper tape is to protect against the slapping of the chain. Now, it's based around a principle of this stuff. This is Scotch 3M tape, M228, I believe it is. It's available in 25mm and 50mm width. It's very sticky. It's actually electrical mastic tape, but really good for use on bikes, although it is becoming harder to source. So this stuff from Airdrop Bikes is brilliant. It's also profiled. It's designed basically to withstand the use on the chainstay, whereas the traditional rubber mastic tape that I use, actually you do need to layer it up a bit or make a profiled shape in order to really silence down the chain. The VHS one actually comes like this. You don't need to do anything to it, just put it straight on the chainstay. You might have a little leftover in the packaging, hopefully, to put on the inside of the seat stay, just where it catches that seat stay there. And it should silence your bike down a treat. It looks really neat, and you've actually seen similar profiles in use from various bike manufacturers. In fact, my Nukeproof Reactor has a a ridged layout on the chainstay there to do exactly the same thing. And it was actually Specialized, one of the first major manufacturers that produced something like this built onto the chainstay of their bikes. And it really does make a significant difference. I've also tried to manufacture something like this myself. I'll say manufacture, bodge, we'll say. Something like this myself, using the mastic tape and some other rubber to make the wavy form that you can actually buy, of course, now from Airdrop Bikes. Check this one out. This is one I made on my Canyon, and it works brilliantly. a right old faff to make it though. So you can get this stuff for 22 quid from Airdrop Bikes. Brilliant little piece of chainstay protection, I think. And following on the chainstay protection theme, although this one is complete silencing, are the STFU.bike chainstay aids, guides. I guess you call them a guide. So you might notice it's got the Carver logo on there. That is Chris Kovarek's nickname. He had a 510 shoe called the Carver. He's been sponsored by 510 since the beginning. He's ridden and raced intense bikes all over the world, probably for over 20 years, actually, thinking about it. He's one of the most aggressive racers and riders on earth. No one can challenge that. The guy is a beast on a bike. Currently residing in Whistler, which I guess is where he came up with the idea of this. Now this is designed to completely silence the chain on a bike. Now you can have the most quiet bike using a slapper tape. It will be great on normal use, but as soon as you go somewhere like Whistler, where you're doing chattery long mountain runs, suddenly your bike sounds like a toolbox going down a flight of stairs. That is not what you want. It just sounds horrendous. So he's developed these, and the chain actually runs through these. So you've got two different loops here. This one's designed for a trail bike, but there's also versions for 10-speed and 7-speed downhill bikes, and also a single-speed one as well, if you want to have just a park bike, for example, with no derailleurs on there. Now the aim is you would trim these down. You fit them by cable tie to your chainstay. I actually noticed these though on the Pole bikes. I noticed on Neil's bike, because they spec them as standard when you buy their bikes. That's how much they believe in these products. They come inverted, mounting on the seat stay of the bike. I guess it's because the design of the bike, the chainstay is dipped quite low. However, they're available in various different guises, and they genuinely completely silence your transmission on your bike. If noise puts you off, get yourself some of these. They're really going to do the trick. I'm not too keen on the looks, but looks really don't matter when your bike sounds that bad. Definitely worth a look if you're a bike part fiend. Yeah, well, and a bit about Chris as well. Chris Kovarek, probably the gnarliest racer of all time. I did say that a minute ago, but something you should know if you don't know who he is. He used to be one of the fastest World Cup downhill racers. 2002 at the Fort William World Cup, I think that was the first year they had one there. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure it was. He absolutely obliterated the field by 14 seconds clear. 14 seconds in a downhill race. The guy's an absolute animal. So yeah, really cool to see him have his name to a product like that. Website is on screen right now and you can see it. So they retail for, I think, $29.95 US, or it might be Canadian dollars, up to 35. You can get them online. There you go. That's all you need. There'll be a link to it in the description underneath this video. And let us know what you think. Would you rather go down the STFU route, or would you prefer the neater looking but maybe not quite as effective slapper tape? Let us know in those comments.
Now, this could be something of a crowd divider, but Ibis have brought out their new frame bag, the Pork Chop, which counterintuitively is actually vegan friendly. So this is basically an updated version for their Ripley, Ripmo and Ripmo AF, which is kind of changed the design to something that was originally available on the Mojo. Now, this Pork Chop bag actually uses kind of almost like a frictional snug fit. It doesn't rely on Velcro or any strapping, which gives it a really clean look. It does have these little legs that stick out the bottom, kind of the bone aspect, and they clip on to the shock mount to ensure that it doesn't go anywhere. But I think it's actually pretty cool, and I think definitely very useful. I would quite happily run one of these, although it might not be to everyone's taste, but I think for a big day out riding, I would like to know that I've got everything I need. With, you know, big wheeled bikes with lots of rear travel, a saddlebag might not be an option. And if you're not the fan of a backpack, apart from strapping everything externally, you can kind of run out of options quite quickly. But this, on the other hand, I think looks very good indeed. And I love the fact that it doesn't require any strapping or Velcro. And once you take it off the bike, there's nothing there to suggest that it could be compatible, which I really, really like. So it is, like I said, already available for the Mojo, but this new one comes in at $79 US, and I think looks very tidy indeed.
Okay, next up in news is something very expensive and very trick. Now, if you have any money left after selling that kidney in order to buy a SRAM AXS transmission, which I could understand you doing that, to be fair, because it is like seriously expensive, but seriously trick, it's the best of the best. If you have any money left and you want to make it even tricker, this is what you buy. This is a carbon outer plate. It costs €79.95 in euros. And it will save you a few grams, basically, but look how cool it is. So I think the standard one is 11.5 grams, and this is about 6 grams, so about half the weight, but man, it looks trick, and it does involve you having to rebuild your SRAM AXS rear derailleur, which isn't for the faint-hearted. I'm sure there's not a lot of people that would want to do it, but if you're a weight weenie and you want the ultimate trickness, that is what you buy. Or actually, scratch that. This is what you buy. You buy the complete overhaul kit, which has the P-knuckle section on there as well. It has that outer plate. It also has the jockey cage on the bottom. Now it costs you 279 euros on top of the 670 euros the mech costs to start with. Man, this is like bonkers. Like nearly €1,000 by the time you're done with all this for a rear derailleur on a bike. That is the most crazy thing I've ever seen. And I think that's why I utterly love it. I could never afford to do that, but man, I would love one. I would love to play with some of this stuff. I'd love to see it. I've never really actually spent much time with the SRAM AXS stuff, and I would genuinely love to, even if I have to give it back in the day, just spend a solid day just riding that stuff, just to really sort of get my head around it. I know that Neil's been riding it recently. He's been raving about it, but he's still not found his optimum setup. I guess it does take a while, but man, yeah, this does seem a bit ridiculous. Is this the trickiest, most unnecessary bike part you've ever seen? If you've seen a more ridiculous bike part than this in a cool way, let us know in those comments underneath. I'm all for it. I think if you can afford to buy that stuff, why not go a little bit more and make it the absolute ultimate? I would. Okay, now it's time for the quiz, which means we're going to ask you 3 tech-related questions, and hopefully you're going to dig out the answers from those huge tech-filled craniums of yours. Okay, so this coming weekend is unfortunately, it's the first of the EWS races because of the whole COVID-19 situation. So it's at Zermatt in Switzerland, which is, I mean, you've got the Matterhorn as a backdrop. I mean, look at this shot on screen. If that doesn't make you want to go and ride and race in the mountains, then nothing will. Like, that is probably one of the best backdrops of all time. Anyway, we're going to ask you some EWS focused questions, seeing as it's the first EWS this weekend. So the first question coming up on screen right now: what colour stanchions was Richie Rude using at the EWS round at Zermatt last year? Give you a clue. Was it black or was it gold? And what fork was it on? Just for a little extra bonus there. Okay, next question. What make or brand was the winning bike at the Zermatt race of the EWS series last year? Okay, and the final question in the women's category: Isabelle Courdurier won the overall on a prototype bike made by which brand? Any clues? We'll come back to the answers shortly. Okay, now it's time for Bike Cave, and instead of celebrating all of your amazing bike caves, I thought I'd actually be a bit self-indulgent and show you some of the things I've done to mine recently. I've been filming in here now for probably 4 months during the whole lockdown thing, so it's kind of got into a bit of a bad state because I've been so busy filming I've spent less time looking after everything. So the first thing I've actually done is wax my workbench using some of this wax polish. It's Black Bison, it's real thick industrial stuff. Works really well. Now, of course, I've got a wooden workbench. I'm well aware it's going to get dented and scuffed and dinged and show patina. That's great, but I still want to protect it. I don't want stuff to just soak in and ruin that wood. So I've done, I think, 4 coats of the stuff now, giving it a good polish in between. As you can see, it's got a nice sheen to it. It looks pretty cool. So spent a bit of time doing that, and I've also, as you might have noticed, changed things around just over my right shoulder here. So the vise was actually right at the end. Terrible place for a vise, but originally things were in a different order in here, and I just not got around to moving it. So I've now moved it right behind me. I've actually serviced the vise as well, so it completely moves side to side. It's got a swivel base, so it's much more usable. I'm going to be using that a lot more, that's for sure. Now I've moved my computer from over my left shoulder to my right shoulder. I made little sort of, using a bit of a cutout, bit of that workbench, worktop stuff I've got left over, and some key clamp pipe. Basically just mirrored what I've done on the other side, so I moved it all over there. And over on the other side, I've now got storage. I've got so much stuff. I've got storage for some of my beloved magazines. So I've got Cranked and a few old dirt magazines tucked away down there. Now I was looking for a way of sort of keeping them upright, and I was looking online actually at Bookends trying to find something quite cool. And actually my wife suggested to me, why don't you just make one using an old disc brake rotor? But brilliant idea. So that's exactly what I did. I dug in my box of old stuff, this is why I keep it all, and found an old 200mm Avid rotor that at some point along the line must have been crashed or transit damaged. So I bent it 90 degrees using a lump hammer by putting it in my vise in the new setup and turned it into a bookend. So actually that is one of my favorite little workshop hacks. And I actually want to make a video on some cool workshop hacks because I've got a few here and there's a few that I've not quite done yet that I actually want to do in the coming weeks that I want to share with everyone, because it's just little storage solutions and things like that, using household things that you've already got. Using the disc brake rotor, that was cool because that was an old part that I didn't get rid of, kept it, and I'm glad I did because that served a good purpose there. Also, I found some other old bits and pieces that I've not really used before. So up on the top here, you can see like a old lanyards for bike events and things I've been to, an old front cover of Mountain Biking UK magazine that I'm on there. I think that's from 2012. You might notice some big print up here. That's actually not staying there. That's far too big for my workshop. But I've got it there for the moment because it's an old broken frame that I need to get rid of when the glass people can come and recycle that. And also the fact the prints are going to be going in the new GMBN Tech set at work. So this is something I want your help with. You must have seen some cool mountain bike artwork out there. It could be photos, but preferably more art-based stuff. Now I'm going to link you in the description underneath to 3 of our favourites today. So Dirty Jerseys, that's one of them. That is the guy that does that stuff up there. Bike Ninja, who makes the clock that you can see up there, the calendar over there, and various old school mugs and cool stuff. And also Trail Maps. Now, Trail Maps, they make seriously cool maps of some of the best trails in the world. Now, we are going to be getting a couple of their prints, maybe a smaller one for here, but I want to get one of their really big global ones for the set at work. Now, if you're aware of anyone that makes cool mountain bike art, get in touch with us. Let us know in the comments underneath. Use the hashtag BikeArt. We want to find some really cool stuff for all of our sets. The same for the Dirt Shed as well. They've already got some cool stuff, but we can make it cooler with your help. If you know someone, get in touch, or if you commission stuff yourself, let us know about yourself. Like I say, so there's a few little things I've done to my bike cave. Let me know, let us know what you've been doing to yours. We'd love to see them. Link is in the description as always underneath. See you soon.
Now it is time for top mods. If you've got your own top mod and you want it featured on the show, then click the link in the description to upload your own submission and hopefully we can feature it. Now, we have loads of submissions, so we can't go through them all, but please do keep sending them in as we love seeing them. Now, this first one is from Hui, I'm gonna say, Hui, and this is their Kona Stinky, which is an iconic bike. It's kind of, this one definitely has some heritage. So they say this is their 2001 Kona Stinky Primo, which they bought as a frame only way back in 2007. They built it up with cheap parts from their old XSeed bike and a budget RockShox domain, but over the years, they've resprayed and rebuilt it to replicate a 2005 Coil Air with a Marzocchi 66 RC. I think this bike is a bit of a blast from the past, but it's pretty cool. And if you look at the before and after pictures, I'll tell you what, you've actually done a real good job on that. Now, I think, you know, in Top Gear, they always say about you can't be a petrol head until you've owned an Alfa Romeo. To me, a Kona Stinky occupies that same space of just, you know, I was a very proud owner of one back in the day, and just such a cool bike that represented something so, it was of the time, you know, like I remember when I got that bike and I just thought that all riding was just drops. We just go to the woods and we just drop off things. Bigger the better, flatter, you know, perfect. But this bike is certainly really cool, and I like that, you know, you've kind of kept it in keeping with its heritage. The next one is from Miles from Chisholm in the USA, and they say they basically love riding and working on their bike, and they've done a bit of work on it, but recently they've put the frame in the low position, so they've flipped the geometry chip and increased the travel on my bike from 130 to 140, which basically would then raise the bottom bracket a bit. It sounds like they're quite particular on BB height. They also installed a SRAM GX carbon cranks with a wolf tooth oval chainring and an XO1 cassette, XX1 chain, and XX1 AXS derailleur sneaking in there, which is the big one. And he says it rides really, really well. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a cool looking bike. I'd have a bit of a soft spot for those treks as well, I've got to say. I think interesting going for the oval chainring. It's something I've been experimenting a bit recently. I rode them a couple of years ago and I've kind of come back to it. But I think the problem with me is because I run such an embarrassingly small chainring, it probably doesn't make as much difference as if you were, you know, plumbing away a bit more power. But yeah, no, super, really clean looking bike, very, very tidy indeed. And this one is actually a bit of a catch up from last week's show. It is Andrew, and he's actually showing us the completed pictures from his roared out giant hardtail, coming also with that very distinctive leaf fork, which is, you know, really is something of a looker. And I think it does look actually really cool, all murdered out and got some really interesting chain rings going on there, which are, you know, milled to within an inch of their life to be as absolutely light as possible. Well, I'm sure. I say inch of their life, joking, obviously. I'm sure they'll be plenty strong enough. The next one is from Dean, and it's actually from not too far away from here, Bristol. And it's just a quick sticker job on the mudguard, which is actually available via Syncross, and it's they were kind of a bit ahead of the curve because they use those bolts on those Fox for the Fox Live system for mudguards before Fox were offering it as a you know, built-in thing with the new 38, and it looks really, really tidy, super clean, no bolts, and of course RRP actually do one as well, which is yeah, it looks really, really good. So thank you for getting all these submissions in, and if you want to keep them coming, that is absolutely fine by us, and hopefully we can feature on the show next week.
Okay, now it's time for Rewind. You know the drill. This is the retro part of the weekly GMBN Tech Show, where we look at where all the cool stuff we're riding now came from. Now, if you've got anything cool and retro, it could be some old photos, you've got old magazines, clips, or preferably bikes and stuff, let us know. There's a link to upload right here, and there's a better one in the description underneath. You can click on that and it takes you through to our uploader. Tell us all about yourself, what you found, what you discovered, or what you want to know. Alternatively, you can also add some comments in the comment section underneath. Use the hashtag rewind. Let us know what you want us to talk about. Now, first up this week, this shot makes me very pleased. This is from Chris in Barnsley, and the bike is a Mongoose DX 6.5. It looks immaculate. So he goes, second attempt sending, as I'm not sure it came through. It's my 1998 Mongoose DX 6.5 that I rode and upgraded slightly over the years. Owned it from new. Originally I had RockShox Indies before the Z1 bombers. And a new rear mech, upgraded the brakes and Rob Warner base jump pedals, fished it out storage and cleaned it up for photos. Loved those Z1s back in the day. Dude, I still love them. That was like a landmark fork. That really was a line in the sand. Everything before it was just warming up. That was the first real mountain bike fork in my eyes. Oil bath on both legs. I mean, there's still stories of Z1 forks floating around that have never been serviced, and they still feel better than some forks today. Now, just looking in here, so you've got Magura brakes on there, HS33s, the bottom of the fork, here you go, so Moto design, coil and oil, very cool. So that's the Z1 BAM, I had a set of those forks, super cool. Not the first iteration, but arguably better because they've kind of refined them slightly and they were a bit lighter than the original ones. So Asira cranks on there, bright blue. I mean, I can't believe the condition of this, mate. It barely looks like you rode it. Obviously, you've got some scratches, but you've really done a job cleaning this up. Love the Mongoose graphic there on the front hub as well. Yeah, the Z1 BAM logo. Oh man, brings back memories seeing them. They look so skinny now, but they were just like the beefiest, burliest thing when they came out. Oh, and there we go, the Rob Warner base jump pedal. In fact, look at the Rob Warner graphic on that, and then look at that mint sauce drawing up on the wall behind me. Yeah, it was Joe Burt that did the graphics for those. And the pedals are actually designed by Jamie Tompkins, who's son of Crud. His dad is Mr. Crud, who makes the DCD, he makes the Crud Catcher, he sponsors Danny Hart. In fact, yeah, and in fact, he's also the guy that's on the calendar over there with Jason McCroy's bike, and he's wearing his DCD t-shirt. The calendar's from Bike Ninja, by the way. There'll be a link to that floating around somewhere. If you're interested, it's got loads of cool retro stuff on it. We'll talk about Jason McCroy shortly. But very cool to see those pedals. They made a right old mess of your legs, I'll tell you that. Frame looks amazing. Again, I can't believe how clean it is. It does look like you've got some new old stock tyres on there though, because they're just too clean to be, and unless you just didn't use them. Amazing, really cool to see though. Thanks for sending that one in, Chris. Mega cool. STX RC mech, look at it, it's like immaculate. Bonkers. Okay, so next up is from John in New Plymouth, New Zealand. Wow, cool. Hey guys, I'm here with my newly acquired Trek. I bought it from the original owner. Awesome surprise. That was, yeah, I bet. Wow, so you've got the original, like a sort of shock sort of converter there. We drove 16 hours return journey to pick it up. It's got XTR all over it, brakes, front mech, seat post, headset, even XTR hubs. Right on the crank's a bit worn, but judging where the letters are, it could be XTR as well. XT rear mech and shifters. Fork is a dual air and supplied adjustable damping via the red tool supplied. Also received a Trek air pressure gauge and manual for the fork and the rear shock. Mate, what bargain. In fact, I say bargain. Sounds good, but I guess it was a bargain because you drove that far to pick up something. It must be a bargain. So Ritchie Force Light handlebars on there. So you basically had Ritchie, or you had the Answer taper lights or hyper lights back in the day. I had the Ritchies actually. Yeah, XCR paddle shifters, Answer ATAC stem. And there we go, there is the back end. So the back end on these bikes had a high pivot cantilever design with what can only be described as rubber donuts instead of shock. They felt about as good as having rubber donuts as well on your bike. Awful handling on that bike, but it was a thing of beauty. Now I remember when MBR magazine tested one of these, and the guy riding it, his name was Jay Hardy. I think he actually watches his show sometimes, so big ups to Jay if you're watching. I remember clearly a shot of Jay sideways and crossed up, he's an ex-BMX racer, about shoulder height, jump out of a bomb hole on one of these, and just thought, that bike, it must be the bike. It can only be the bike. We have to buy the bike. Of course it wasn't. Jay was an amazing rider. He still is by all accounts, but the bike was a POS back then, but now it's quite desirable. In fact, Neil decided to ride one so much, he bought one off eBay and did a video of the retro versus modern. There's a little clip of it on screen. And I'm going to put a link to that video in the description underneath. It's quite an old video on GMBN, but definitely worth a watch. But I tell you what, I really appreciate seeing the bike now. You had XT seat post. Man, that's like a hen's teeth. Shame the condition of it, unfortunately. But the rest of the bike, wow, yeah, like really good. So original tyres on there as well, by the looks of it. So the fork were made by Showa, I believe, for Trek back in the day. So a bit of motocross coming in there. It looks cool though, doesn't it? Wicked old retro bike. I mean, it's so simple and it's so far away from where Trek are, and in fact where Trek were at the time. This was a bit of a departure for them. It looked kind of like work in progress when they released the thing, but super cool. Had to start somewhere. I wonder if you can make that pedal right by putting an idler wheel on there somehow. Now, while we're on a rewind theme, I did reference the calendar in the background. There should be a shot of it popping up on screen right now. Now, check the bikes out. So they used to belong to Jason McCoy, the late, great Jason. I'm recording this on Monday, which is the 24th of August. We lost Jason on 24th of August, 1995. He was certainly the one that paved the way for where we started our sort of impact on the world of mountain biking. I think a lot of people remember him with fond memories. For me, it was him in the Dirt video. In fact, this mug, you can see him here, that was his Celtic band style tattoo. And it's a really cool image of JMC from the Dirt video. It's super cool. If you like those, by the way, you can get those from Bike Ninja. They do some really cool stuff. But yeah, I think it's like, you know, it's important to remember people like JMC. There's a lot of people that we've lost, unfortunately, in the sport, but he was definitely one of the early ones. Gone but not forgotten. R.I.P. Jace.
Now it is time for the tech quiz answers. So the answer to the first question, it is of course black. Now normally factory riders do have the Kashima all singing, all dancing, you know, look at me gold forks. However, when they're trying to sneak something under the radar, it's not uncommon for even factory riders in the prototype development kind of team running black forks. Now the second question, the answer of course was Martin Mace, and he was racing his GT, which very exciting bike indeed. And the last question, Isabeau Corderia won the women's race on a prototype bike made by which brand? It was of course Intense, riding that alloy prototype with the mixed wheel setup. So how did you get on this week with those tech questions? Now, thank you very much for watching the show. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and get in the comments below. How did you do on this week's tech quiz? Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.